Oh. Tuesday, everybody. Should set this thing. It's been a wild one for me. I'm gonna get this out of my way, but where I can see it just in case. So a little preface for this stream. I have a family member who's in the hospital currently, so there is a potential that I end very early, depending on what's going on. But other family members are with said family member, so there's kind of a only one unless something goes horrifically wrong. But yeah, I'll give you that preface right now. There's a potential that I just like bolt, as you can imagine. So yeah, long story short, be careful. Leo, sad day today. I finished my bottle of Buffalo Trace. Good news, Buffalo Trace, pretty easy to get a hold of, but it is very good whiskey. Especially at its price point. I would say the only thing that's I would argue is better at its price point and proof. Um, I have one here because it's from my local club, so it's a pick, but would be like Eagle Rare. So yeah, just something to look out for, Leo, my guy, as you're exploring the world of whiskey. Leo, or anyone else who happens to be up toward the Northwest West Coast, how many of you are going to Fishtoberfest this year? Because if you're going to Fishtoberfest, I'm going, or at least unless something goes horribly wrong. My plan is to go. They changed it. It's at a different location. It's only one day, but it should still be a lot of fun. And yeah, I have to go book a hotel room soon. But yeah, trying to make it. If you are going to go, Leo, just like you know how to get a hold of me, shoot me a message. Because I'm bringing some stuff because I know one person who is going, who's from up my way, who's a friend of mine. We're both brown water fans, so I'll be bringing some stuff with me so that we can have a nice sip. But other than that, I'm going mostly to hang out with people. You know how it is. That's what I like about conventions is I just get to hang out with other fish nerds, and that does tie into today's topic. So rather than go too long, okay. One other piece of news. I had to drop kind of a bombshell on my work today and put in my 2 weeks notice because I have found another job, and that will potentially impact us here. It kind of depends on what schedule it is, because similar to my current role, I will be fully on site. I can't work remotely, and it's a pretty similar commute to my current commute. The question is whether or not I'll be allowed to go in as early as I go into my current job, which makes it possible to get home in time for streaming. So we'll see. But just a heads up, there is a potential that things change based on my how my schedule at my new job changes. But it is in all other worlds kind of an upgrade. So that's nice. It's a little extra money, a little more time off, not a lot, but a few other nice upgrades. But more importantly, it's just it'll be something that lets me do something I kind of haven't done in the realm of test. I've done some of it, but not as in depth as I will be now. So it lets me learn something and kind of tackle new problems, and yeah, it'll be fine. And when I can talk about it, I will. But for right now, I can't, because NDAs are fun. Not technically cloud. Kind of sort of AI, kind of sort of financial, kind of sort of space. Yeah, it's a wild project. We'll just put it that way. It's wild, it's big, it's crazy, and when I can talk about it, I'll talk about it. But I'm looking forward to it. It's lots of problems that I feel like I can do cool things. We'll put it that way. Feel like I can do some stuff to really help, and by doing so could potentially land myself in an even better position long term. But we'll see how that pans out, because life is effing crazy right now. All right, so let me tie into why find your why fits with Fishtoberfest, or for me, my love of conventions, mostly to just go and talk to other fish nerds. I have a personal, like, philosophical hero. Well, I have multiple, but a kind of corporate work related, leadership related hero. Next time I'm scared. Okay, give me a half second. I did do that on purpose, right? It was a little intentional to have a like pseudo clickbaity title that makes it look like um, something different than the intentional message. So I got a lot of people who had some comments of like, "Dude, you gave me a heart attack," or like, "I was doing some heavy breathing, etc., etc." Um, found why it's after X, but yeah, I did that a little on purpose, but at least it was accurate, right? It's not like it was a title that made no sense. So yeah. How dare you pretend to leave us? You can't get rid of me that easy, brother. Come on now. You should know by now. All right, anyway, back to topic. So I have this kind of leadership related hero, a gentleman by the name of Simon Sinek. And if you're not familiar with him, um, I will just like link you his YouTube channel because he's pretty awesome. But he talks about leadership in a way that uh, fits my brain, and I found him long before. It's not like he shaped what is my image of leadership, but it was one of those people where it's like, hey, someone else who's talking my language, right? And he has this fantastic thing in the corporate world called Find Your Why, and he has this like big TED talk about it and things like that. But basically, he approaches it from like a more corporate mentality or a friendship mentality, right? And a couple of other things. So I wanted to talk about it from a perspective of aquariums because as I was thinking of a few things I was going through at work while I was tendering my like 2 week notice, slightly more than 2 weeks, 2 weeks and like 3 days, but 2 week notice and getting prepped for a new job and why I chose that new job and why I was leaving my current job. I got to thinking about it from an aquarium perspective because I'm also kind of excited about Fishtoberfest. Sue, yeah, I'm sorry I missed Keystone Clash. Just a matter of plain and simple, it's finances. Like I just couldn't afford it. I couldn't just justify the cost of flying out. Unfortunately, as someone in my size, like flying coach for that many hours is extremely, basically impossible. It's so uncomfortable. So I end up having to fly first class, which means it costs like more than double and all those kind of things. It's a little rough. When I was a speaker there, it was definitely more feasible because I was getting a portion of my airfare refunded. It'd be kind of a normal ticket, and they like took care of my hotel room. So really, it was like I'm out the difference in cost of the ticket, and then like I think 2 meals is basically what I had to pay for. So yeah, got those filthy Eagle fans out there. They're bird bros. It's okay. Let me get on topic, people. Jeez, you're killing me. We all know that every live stream with me is an uncoordinated mess. And you would probably think that if based on my live streams, I would be terrible at my job, but it turns out being an uncoordinated mess is actually really good for breaking stuff. So somehow it makes me better at my job. So anyway, I was pondering because it's like the only convention I'm going to this year is Fishtoberfest, and it's a little shorter than it was last year. It's at a different place, but I will still get to see a lot of people that I call friends who are down in the Portland area. There's other people who are traveling, coming up from the California area that I get to see. And in the end, one of my favorite things about Fishtoberfest and any convention is kind of one of the more central parts of why I do YouTube. And we kind of talked about that in the Thank You for Everything video. For those who watched it, I'm sorry if I gave you a heart attack, but I'm also glad I gave you a heart attack because it meant that you watched. And you probably watched all the way through because you were getting paranoid for a little bit about whether or not I was going to call it quits. Instead of just saying that legitimately, I do thank all of you people. Sincerely. Because you're awesome. ADHD is just crazy multitasking. You are correct. It's multitasking for the purely insane. But yeah. So I was thinking there, and I kind of wanted to come back to this concept that comes from one of my like leadership philosophical gurus, if you will, which is Simon Sinek and Find Your Why. For me, part of the reason, and I talked about this in that video, but part of the reason why I love doing YouTube is it gets to a very central core thing that is important to me, which is the ability to help people. The ability to skill people up is what we would call it, like in the industry, in the sense of tech, is like how to skill yourself up or how you skill up your team. Basically, how to grow people's talent, how to grow people's capability, how to grow people's knowledge. Pick whatever. George, dude, buddy, I assume you're going to be at Fishtoberfest, so I'll see you relatively soon, but good to see you, buddy. And my why when it comes to YouTube is shaped very differently than my why of why I got back into the hobby. And that's the part I want to talk about. And that's the part that I want to kind of leave in a like philosophical mental set that for you folks, because I think it could be very powerful when we start making decisions, right? And trust me, I'll find a way to button this all up together. Sounds crazy right now, but I've got there's a method to my madness. It's mostly a madness to my method, but there's something there, I promise. When I got back into the hobby, the biggest thing that drove me toward the hobby was something that felt very missing from my childhood in my adult life. And despite the fact that I had a bunch of hobbies, like I was always big, I went to arcades constantly as a kid, and I had some arcade machines, and that fulfilled that little part. And I played like Magic the Gathering and Dungeons and Dragons and a lot of these gaming things that I loved as a kid. But there was a sense of peace from when I was a kid of keeping fish that doesn't come from any other pet, whether it's cats, birds, dogs, ferrets. I've had a lot of pets. My family is very pet forward, right? You know, animal companions are important in our lives, but fish gave me something very different. And also the ability to bring a level of nature in my home through trying planted tanks. I started circling back to it, and every time I would get back to it, it was like, I just missed this. But I wasn't really finding why I missed it at first until I was unemployed when I got back into this hobby. So what a stupid move. Get into an expensive hobby while you're unemployed. I do that a lot, by the way. Yes, when I'm unemployed, I find like different hobbies that help fill some sense of time, accomplishment, whatever it may be, that help drive me forward. And I found it right before I got like a temporary job for a short period of time. In that, no matter how stressed I was or what was bothering me, whether I was mad at something, whatever it may be, I could sit in front of a fish tank for as little as 10 minutes. And I could feel a lot of that melt away. It was a level of peace. And even when I'm doing plant maintenance, occasionally filter maintenance, although usually that's not that fun, but because you're getting all sorts of mess done. But working in a fish tank or just sitting and watching my fish swim would bring a level of peace to me. And that's where I felt this. I understand why I missed it. Because when I was a kid, I could sit and watch my fish swim for 30 minutes, an hour, or longer, and I just felt relaxed and happy. I found my why in the hobby. And as I started to learn things and get better at stuff, a deeper why of who I am as a person, and I talked about that a little bit in my Thank You for Everything video, is my deep desire to help people, whether it is learn a new skill, become better at a skill, overall growth, right? That rising tide mentality. I want to make as many people around me better, whether that is through their personal joy, their career, or their hobby, whatever I am able to touch. That is something that I deeply enjoy doing. And it is my why and what tends to drive me toward a lot of the things I do in life. So you're probably asking yourself, okay, we got it, Bentley. You mentioned this in a video. What the F does that have to do with me? I think when we start finding our why in whatever we do, whether it is aquariums, and we'll stick to aquariums for now because that's the easiest one, all of our decisions get easier. From like a corporate perspective, right? If we were selling a product, we could use an example of someone like, say, Aquarium Co-op, right? I could sell you a sponge filter, and if I come to you and I say, this is a sponge filter, it helps filter out all the gunk, it's really easy, and it's less expensive than those powered filters. Like, okay, but I like my powered filter. So that tells me what it is, but it doesn't tell me why you make it. Where instead, and I think Corey actually does a very good job often of explaining this, especially with like Easy Green. I think Easy Green is one of the ones where he's the best at explaining this. You go, do you like doing things efficient and naturally and simply that won't cost you too much money? Because I have a solution for you when it comes to your fish tank. Same message, just said differently, right? And instead of what I'm selling, I'm telling you why. This is how we could do it from a product perspective. But if we take that same mentality and we think to ourselves, instead of what do I want my next fish to be? What do I want to have in my next tank? If we ask ourselves, why are we constructing a new tank? Why are we adding a fish to a current tank? All of a sudden, I feel like our decisions become easier. Now, it might just be because you're Leo, and it's like, because I can, right? Leo, my man, has gotten into so many different fish, and I love Leo to death because he brings it. There's no pulling Leo back. Leo is that guy who dives in, not just like neck deep. That dude's like 6 foot under anytime he dives into stuff. And I love it because that kind of passion is something that builds some of the coolest hobbyists I get to meet. And he's gone through cycles, but he still has all those things and cares about all those things, right? Because he can or because he can't stop. Yes, right? And I've met so many wonderful people that are similar, but maybe they're like, you could go to me, like, Bentley's putting up a new tank. We just assume it's going to have a rainbow fish in it, right? But why? There are so many options out there. And other than, like, he's the rainbow guy, why is it always a rainbow fish? And the real answer is because I have found a certain set of traits in rainbows that bore down to a very core of who I am as a person and why I care about this hobby that no other fish can really fulfill. Do I want to have zebra plecos again? Yes. But do I think about every time I'm opening a new tank, what pleco am I going to put in that? No. Not at all. Sometimes, but usually it's the same ones I already have. I've got a small army of short fin super red bristlenose, thanks to one of the people who is a member of the channel, and I need to actually thin them out because I have too many because I keep having babies. But that's not what I think about. But like when it comes to rainbows, and Laura, I will answer that question. Why rainbows? What are those traits? Rainbows are inherently a very community-friendly species. They have a behavior that is very community-friendly. They are peaceful, even though they have these big, boisterous personalities. And they're very colorful. And they are totally unafraid. Like, once they get used to you as a person, they're out front. They're constantly begging at the front of the tank whenever you walk past. They'll constantly act like, oh my God, I'm starving. I haven't eaten in months. I promise. No, you didn't just feed me 5 minutes ago. I don't even remember 5 minutes ago. They might do something stupid, bonk their nose into something, pay no attention while they're trying to show off for the ladies and they do something kind of dumb. I do things that are dumb all the time. That resonates with me. But there is something in their behavior and their unabashed want to basically be in your face and very, very, very social that resonates with me. And as I have, Sue Harkey is putting this perfectly, as I called them in my talk, they're beautiful idiots. They're beautiful because a lot of the traits that I, as a person, both try to exude, encapsulate, and care about, I see in those dumb fish. And so they inherently strike a very, very important chord with me. I found my why in rainbows because deep down, even though they're dumb, they are so much in tune with who I am as a person. I just want to be in my happy little space. I need a little bit of room to stretch out. But if I got somebody else who's in the tank, I'm going to be so very social. But sometimes I want my quiet time, and I'm going to just kind of dodge away when something bugs me, right? I'm going to just kind of, I'm going to go hide in the back of the tank for a little bit. I'm going to take a little sleep, take it easy, get my stress out, and then I'm going to be right back up front, being loud, whether it's by color in the case of rainbows, by behavior in the case of rainbows, or by me with my voice. So I think if you can find your why as to why, whether it is you make the fish decisions you make, you build tanks the way you build tanks, or even just what truly at the very deep down portion of your life makes this hobby important to you, I think anytime you have to make a decision, and that decision could be a hard one. That decision could be you see a fish that's not doing well, and whether or not you remove that fish, or in the case of maybe you've already quarantined it and tried to treat it, do you euthanize it? How big a softie are you? Are you like me where I have a tank full of fish that I know if I was several other rainbow keepers, I would have euthanized them all, but because I'm me, they have the retirement tank and they'll be there for as long as they live. Because deep down, I'm a big softie. And despite the fact that I know at any time Mycobacterium could flare up in those fish, they're not showing it right now. So let them live their lives. Why? Because it feels like it's the right thing to do. For me. For others, maybe not. But for me, it is. Find your why. And it could be as simple as kind of you as saying, I found my why in the aquarium hobby because I feared my grandfather. But maybe, now that you look back at it, you might see that it's not the fear, but it was because it was your grandfather's way to bond with you. Out of all things, that was the thing that he knew, somewhere deep down, could form a bond with you. A hobby. And that hobby just happens to be keeping teeny tiny fish in a glass box. Find your why. And if you can do it in more than just this hobby, if you can apply it to many portions of your life, I think you will find a greater level of not only peace, but purpose. Let me give you a crazy example. My current work, some of my coworkers have joked that my team might be in massive trouble the day I leave because of the number of things that I take care of and kind of the balance of work, which is very imbalanced, that I do compared to some other members of my team. They'll find a way. They're talented. I'm not worried about that. It'll be tough for a little bit, but they'll figure it out. But why I'm leaving? Because I got to a point of where I felt that my dog was going to bark. Yeah, you're barking. What are you barking at? Nothing. You heard a different dog bark downstairs, and so you're gonna bark. And he probably barked because he's excited and barks at everything. And you don't even know what you're barking at. You're looking out the window trying to find something to bark at. We know her why. Her why is bark. But for me, right, and I found this why in the way that I work, is I felt I was at a point where I couldn't continually make a positive impact. Things felt stale. And in the places where I knew I could fix problems, I was powerless to do so as a contractor. So what did I do? I found the next place where I feel I can make the greatest level of impact, where I can fix problems and help people be better at a number of difficult issues. Oh, now you're back at my feet. Why, thank you. Dogs are so silly, man. I think if you understand your why in life in many different places, it doesn't have to be at one thing. That is where you will find the most drive and purpose. And when you have to ask yourself a question like, what's the next fish tank I want to set up? That question becomes so much easier because you know your why. You know why you're setting a tank up. Once you know the why, the how and the what becomes super easy. And that is my conversation for tonight. Pick and choose. Does Bentley have a Discord? I do have a Discord, but it's specifically for members. It's kind of one of the things that because I don't do a ton of membership related stuff, which for all of you, those of you who are members, thank you so much. The fact that you are supporting my ability to do things in that way, despite the fact that unlike say bigger channels that are out there that have lots and lots of content for their members, I just appreciate you. But the membership Discord, it's either YouTube or Patreon, even though I've basically shut my Patreon down. It's like 3 people. But it's the Pseudo McGill level and higher, you get an invite. And I will tell you this because I'm totally not afraid of this. You can basically be in for a month, get the invite, and I don't audit it. Like if you stop being a member, you just be in the Discord for forever. I don't care. I'll probably actually start opening it up to almost all levels because, yeah, why not? But yeah, it's there because it's one of the ways to get like the bat phone, so to speak, in that it's one of the things that I can more easily monitor in some semblance of real time while like I'm at work and things like that. It's a little harder to do like constantly answering emails and things like that. And I try to answer comments quite a lot whenever I can through the YouTube channel, but that's kind of like where some of the bat phone is. And there's a lot of just like really good hobbyists that are in there that are very, very helpful. Yeah. It's a small group, but it's a passionate group. We're all bat-esque crazy about fish and plants. It's really what it comes down to. What's your ultimate favorite rainbow? Good question, Laura. See, here's the thing. I waffle on this answer a little bit. I would say that as of now and for a long time, it would probably be the Running River Rainbow. But that's because the Running River Rainbow has this phenomenal story behind it. And more importantly, if you see a group of running rivers, they are the most tightly schooling rainbow I've ever seen. Where most of the other rainbows kind of like loosely school, and think of this like a lot of tetras. You know, neon tetras, they school, they more shoal than they do school, where rummy nose tetras school. And that's the thing about running river rainbows is they are more like rummy nose tetras in that they will stay very tight, they move together as a big group, And it's something that I really haven't observed in any of the other rainbow species I've kept. They stay in more loose kind of shoal groups as opposed to proper schooling fish. And so it's one of those things where, like, they have such a unique behavior. They have this really cool story where they were basically brought back from the edge of extinction for effectively no money in the grand scheme of things by a group of scientists. And the things that they did to do it are phenomenal. There's several different videos on there. I have one, a couple other people do. They're all great about telling that story. So, look those up. But they also are just kind of a very unique and cool fish in general. But the fish that got me into rainbows was bozemanii. So they always hold like a really important part of my heart, and I'll kind of always have a bozemanii somewhere. Whether it's just one who's currently in like the tank with the dojo loaches, and it's really funny to see this like elder Atinjo bozemanii who plays with the dojo loaches. They'll chase him, and then he chases them, and he swims with them all over the tank. It is so funny to watch these fish that come from very different water systems, parts of the world, get along like best friends. It is hilarious to me. And my wife. My wife thinks it's adorable. And so it's kind of one of those things where, like, I love how social rainbows as a whole are. About the only other fish that I would say is kind of the fish I want to acquire that I don't have right now would probably be Glossolepis maculosus, but they are a very finicky fish. Glossolepis in general are like that. And, yeah, there's only a few people that are actively breeding them, and it's a little tough. So, like, Lucas, LRB Aquatics is one of those people, and he's been giving eggs and or fry to other people, and the last time he had some for sale, they were at a price where I was like, brother, come on. let's try to distribute them a little bit more first before we start gouging on the price some. But they are kind of a bear to breed, and they don't throw as much fry as some of the other rainbow fish, so I kind of understand why he's doing what he's doing. But from my perspective, and I just have such a different philosophy on fish. Like, fish is not my living, right? Where for Lucas it is. So it makes a little sense that he's doing what he's doing. And he wasn't charging like an astronomical price. I want to be clear. It was just like, that's more than I want to spend, man. All right, I'll just let other people buy them. But yeah, those are probably my three other rainbow fish that I find interesting, whether it's from a story perspective. You'll find that I'm like, story is a big thing for my life. I like stuff with an interesting story. If something has a tale to tell, it's a lot of like how I do some of my YouTube content. Like when I go and when I get the opportunity to interview other people in this hobby, whether that's stores or whatever, I care about their story so much more than like what they're doing as a business. And like I feel like that was pretty well shown with Shrimpy Business, is the most recent one I've done, where it was like, okay, tell me how you went from I'm a chemical engineer, I make a comfortable living. Nah, man, I'm going to quit my chemical engineering job to sell shrimp. How do you get to that point? What's the story that brings you there? Because that's the thing that is the most interesting to me. And a lot of times, for many of you that you've met me in person, you kind of know this. I'm going to dig into your story about what got you into fish and why you keep the fish you keep. Because learning that story about each individual person I meet is more special to me than any other part of this hobby. Because I'm a weirdo, and that's what I'm into. It's probably why I wanted to go into radio when I was younger, is because then you're just kind of like a storyteller. For those who want to get like super nerdy about it, I'd call it like the bard of the modern era, right? It's kind of the way my brain clicks. I'm a weirdo, I know. I know. I know. All right. So yeah. Bentley, do you have any rice fish? Currently, no. I was planning. Don't you start barking just because she barked. I feel you getting up. I was planning a tank that would potentially have. Oh, shut up! She's barking at nothing. You're fine. Huff, 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 huff. She sits and huffs when she wants to bark because she knows that I don't like that she just barks at nothing. So she's there and go, because deep down she's part Shiba, so she's real stubborn. Real stubborn. But yeah, it's one of those things where like I want to do rice fish, and I had this like cool idea from a friend of mine about doing a small group of rice fish in like a shallow tank using immersed plants like duck potato was one of the examples that we talked about. So there's some of those kind of things that I thought about doing, but like right now I'm changing so many other little things at a time that right now I'm get trying to get things back to like what I would consider stable enough to make some of those changes. So like eventually this whole setup that you see as far as how I stream will completely change. And that might make it more possible. Like I'll get rid of this ugly old thing that was meant to carry basically just like VHS or DVDs. That's what this was designed for. But it's just built so sturdily because it's from the 80s that I've used it for other stuff for an eternity. But yeah, so eventually I'll get to a point where I'll have like a tank behind me and whatever, like my final for a while at least streaming setup is going to be. I'm trying to figure those things out, and I'm focusing on a lot of other things at first. It's just one of those things. But yeah, I want to do some rice fish because there's a lot of... I like the rice fish that are designed to be viewed top down, like koi. That's where I find the most interest in rice fish, even though that's like totally bad for a camera because most like camera stuff you're going to view from the side. But yeah, they're super cool fish. Let's be honest. Rice fish are cool. Teviston, I set up a 110-gallon tank for rice fish and just found my first fry. Very cool. Yeah, rice fish are super cool. I love the way that they carry their eggs on their fins. When you see like a female that's carrying a clutch of eggs on her fins swimming around, it's just kind of very neat and interesting compared to a lot of the other fish that we have in the hobby that are egg scatterers, or they lay a clutch of eggs on the glass like Corydoras or something like that. It's just interesting. Mario, what happened to the flex that was behind you on streams, or was that Mandela effect or something I'm making up? No, I had a flex. The short answer is that the back filter chamber is just a plastic divider, and the silicone on it had like deteriorated and detached, so it was kind of going all over the place. And eventually I got to a point of where I wanted to tear it down because I wanted to do something different. And then life got way too busy for my own good, and doing something different became, I want to focus on other tanks. I brought the number of tanks in my house down quite a bit because I had more than I could manage, frankly put. So I started trading in like multiple 10 gallons for one 40-gallon breeder. I shut down a number of tanks within my house so that I went from, I think it was at one point it was like 36 tanks. Now I'm at, it's like 12 or 13. So significant downgrade in number, but the gallonage has basically stayed the same. Hannah Banana, I am late. We'll have to replay later. My washer failed, full of water and clothes. Husband wants to use my Python to siphon the water out. I'm assuming you got soap in there, right? Maybe you can justify getting a replacement Python. You get a new Python and use the old one to drain it. But yeah, you don't want to have soap in the tube. You'd be better off like starting suction with a garden hose and having it run outside. But yeah, there's such a risk if there's any soap residue left in the tube. No matter how much you rinse it, there's huge risk. So yeah, fight the good fight. Protect your fishies. If not, you can show them this little snippet of time. Like, do you want to buy me all new fish? Or do you want to buy one Python, or just go get the garden hose and figure it out? I'm sure if he's smart, he will be frugally minded and go, which one's cheapest? Probably the garden hose? Let's do the garden hose. I'll get a mouthful of soapy water for a half second to make sure that we drain this thing with the garden hose and call it a day. Oh, man. For rice fish, set up a 50-gallon lowboy and a sturdy coffee table height to become indoor pond. Yeah, yeah. That's. I was actually doing it with a smaller tank than that, but that is definitely something that's a potential. Eventually, I'll have a tank of rice fish at some point. But just right now, like especially with changing jobs here soon, felt a sneeze coming. Figured that was the better way. But yeah, with job change coming, that could completely change my work schedule and thus a number of different things. I'm definitely not setting up any new tanks anytime soon. The only one that will get set up, and I need to do it before the rain season starts, is getting all of the hardscape at least in for the tank that my wife is scaping. That's already basically set up. It just needs hardscape, and then I gotta fill it full of water and plants. And I need to get on that soon because my guppies are having too many babies. I need extra space for them. But yeah, I used a clean Tupperware container to fill my tank over the weekend. It was previously been washed and soaped many times. Yeah, there's some risk in general. Like my suggestion is anytime you have to use a container or a tube or something to do any level of water work, have it dedicated to your fish tanks. So like I have a Python. I've got buckets, and if that bucket ever gets used for anything not fish, I basically will never use it for fish ever again. I'll go just buy a new bucket because they cost me like $4 or $5 now, whatever inflation has put them to. They used to be like $2. Inflation is the worst. But yeah, it's just so much easier to go get a small amount. How will I know if the water is ruined from the Tupperware? Hopefully, it's a small enough amount of water that it shouldn't run an issue. But I mean, you would potentially see either one, a bunch of excess bubbles at the top of your tank, or two, you would start seeing negative effects in your fish. That should happen relatively fast if soap was actually in the water. If it's relatively cleaned, like you're maybe using a dishwasher or something, you should have seen an effect by now, I would gander. Unless you just did it, like right before stream. But if you did it, say, like 3 days ago, and nothing has happened, you should be okay. Jeff C., I am late to the stream. Did you get any rainbow eggs fry from Gary while he was in town? I did not. Right now, everything is kind of set in my house, and I don't have space to raise any fry, nor do I have the time. I'm just not around enough to feed them at a rate that will guarantee success. Some of my friends got some, so like Hoon Aquatics, who's in the area, he picked up the Cali Tusa, which is the one that I was the most interested in. So he's been raising out a bunch of fry and sending me like updates almost weekly, which is awesome because he's a great friend and knows I'm an idiot. Uh, so like he's been sending me updates on the fry, and we basically just talked like once fry get to a certain size, I'll probably get a certain number of them. I'll just buy them off him, and then he'll raise up his own later too because he's a really good rainbow fish breeder. So yeah. Did you see my comment about Final Fantasy 14? And if so, my question is when. I'm ready to help you and your wife. We're trying to figure out our schedules. We've just been super busy. Like my wife's had a bunch of medical stuff lately that have eaten up some of our time, so it's just made it so we can't play. But her goal is to play. We're not playing a lot. We're gonna play like every other week. It's not super often, and we've got a group of friends that we play with, or that we will play with, because they have a scheduled like night every week that they play for their stream. So we'll probably just play more casually with them. A lot of it can be like catching her up early, and she's gonna try and do some stuff for her own like gaming channel, things like that too, because she wants to make content out of it and all those kind of things. What do you think of the new flex tanks, and are you guys ready for Pokemon? My wife is very eager for Pokemon. Um, the new flex tanks look fine. I mean, it's just slight upgrades. I feel like it's kind of like the upgraded or the new Aqua Clears. I don't know how you really call them upgraded. There's just some slight changes that give some positives, but whatever. The Flex was a good tank as is. They're just updating it some. I'm not, how to put this? Most of the time when I'm doing a tank, I want something bigger than a Flex. And Flexes are a little expensive, but yeah. Oh, no. Laura, I see your question. Don't worry, I'm going to get you in just a second. I'm just going to make sure I didn't miss something else right before yours. I don't think so. And then I have been jumping around because there's been other questions that I've missed because I'm slow and talk too much. Hopefully, we'll basically took the best ideas on Etsy to upgrade the Flex. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. That's a good way to put it. Okay. Laura, I might be moving from Utah to Georgia. Ooh, that's a very different climate change. Moving my fish, bucket, and sponge filter. I mean, how do I do this? I'm running a sponge filter in my aquarium to get it cycled. So how big's your current tank? And like, do you just have one tank right now? Or do you have multiple? I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. Sorry, my brain's slightly fried. 60 gallons. So you might need multiple buckets. First off, when you go get a bucket, if you can, get the buckets that are food grade. Because they're just better at preventing plastic leaching. But if you can't find those, or they're just exorbitantly expensive, get a fresh bucket, clean it really, really thoroughly, give it a nice good rinse. But get the paint lids that have like the little kind of expandable top in the very center. That'll help you with kind of sloshing. Don't have the water too high. You're probably going to have to do water changes like every night that you stop. So make sure that you have some dechlorinator with you. And for what I've found the most experience with, yeah, you can throw in some plants with them. That'll help. But if you have the ability to do so, like if in your vehicle you have any USB plugs, those little portable USB air pumps are actually great for keeping it's a light amount of airflow going in your buckets. You can also do it with like the battery powered ones. They last a couple of days. It's just they're a little more expensive and they are battery powered, so you'll need like, what is it, C batteries for those, the big chunky ones. But that being said, pretty easy. The only thing is whether or not you want to like replace your tank entirely, or if you're trying to move your tank. If you're trying to move your tank and depending on the plants you have, you can basically completely drain your tank. Leave all the plants and stuff in there, although I would tend to remove heavier hardscape that could move around and just put that somewhere completely separate. I have USB rechargeable battery air pumps. There you go. Yeah, that should be good. They last a good amount of time. But you can leave the plants in there, and what you can do is cover the top with saran wrap and just give it enough of a very heavy misting to treat it similar to how people will do it's not truly a dry start, but like the dry start method where you don't actually have the tank flooded. And you can probably keep your plants for a few days doing that, as long as every time you stop, you're basically just misting the heck out of them to make sure they stay well hydrated. You don't need them to be flooded with water, but you just need them to like stay misted and kind of seal them. It makes it pretty easy. Bagging the plants, you can definitely bag the plants. One of the things that I tend to do when I bag plants, if I know they're going for a little longer ride, get a little piece of paper towel, soak it in your tank water beforehand so that it's wet, and put that little like square of paper towel in the bag with the plants, because that will provide kind of extra moisture rather than having to put a bunch of water in the bag. And I would just kind of stack a bunch of bags in a bucket to make sure that just in case leaks happen, that leak is in the bucket and you're safe. But that hydration will help. Plants can go a few days without light. They'll be okay. You don't need to stress too hard about that. But yeah. Pick and choose. I think when I move, I'll probably just give away my livestock and start over. Trying to pull off keeping them seems so daunting. I take my hat off to all of you who do it. Yeah, it's a little tough. When you're moving, especially if it's a multi-day drive, it's stressful, but there are lots of ways to do it. I've seen people who will like use some of like the totes and they'll put just enough water in them and then get the lids on them and kind of tie them down. And I think Corey from the co-op did this for moving a bunch of fish from a convention that he drove to with Jimmy and I think Dean as well. There's Jimmy and somebody else. He had a video on it, his channel. It was like, I don't know, 4 years ago or something like that. But it was kind of funny. They had this van all decked out and had had places for these totes of fish they were bringing back. And it worked. They brought a ton of stuff back. I don't even think they had any losses. So, you could look at that too. Is another option. I think they were going to Cataclysm. Does that sound right, guys? Was it Cataclysm? But yeah. KG Tropicals has videos. Yeah, I'm sure they do too. There's lots of people have videos about doing it, but that's generally the attack plan that I would go with. All right. OnlyFans just dropping by to drop a comment, add a like. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you, OnlyFans. Appreciate you. Jeff C. I'd love to have a big group of Melanitania rubra someday. So that's the Wapoga Red Laser or the Striped Praecox, depending on the different name you would like to use. But using the official name, attaboy. Great fish. They're so pretty. I knew Dean had a big group for quite a while, and I got an opportunity to see them. They were absolutely beautiful. Let's see here. I think I missed one other thing. I need to find it. If I do miss your question, just shoot it back again, because I'll answer it. Trying my best. The Megaflex has a really good footprint, enough length for several dwarf cichlids, and enough height for midwater fish to be happy. Yeah, I do think the Megaflex is the best of all the flex tanks. But not everybody wants the 32-gallon longer tank. They might want the smaller one, and in that case, I would say the 15 is the better of the two. It also has a pretty good footprint for what it is. You just can't put nearly as many fish in it, which is fine. If you're just trying to do a single species or something like that, it makes a great tank. Just don't put stuff in there that doesn't like a little bit of flow, because it will pump a reasonable amount of water unless you change out the water pump that's in that tank. So, don't go trying to put a really huge veil-tailed betta in there. They might not like that flow, but you could probably get away with a number of other fish instead. I've had a small rainbows in those before, and they did great. Do all sorts of stuff. Oh my god, they're moving fish from Singapore to the U.S. Oh man, I don't know who has that level of guts. Could be taking a boat. That'd be wild. Virginia to South Carolina as an example, ones you'd be rolling. Yeah, I could get that. And a lot of mods on Etsy for Fluviflexes. Yeah, there's tons of mods. The one thing I will say, there's 3 or 4 people that build a lot of mods for all sorts of things on Etsy. A lot of Fluval products especially, and it's pretty great. I changed my Flex 9 filtration to use the Co-op air collar and lift tube. Works well for low flow. That's smart. That's kind of like how Dean did an experiment where he changed the lifter tubes on an underground filter plate to the curved lifter tube that Co-op has with the air collar and stuff. And they pushed so much more water through and created more movement for, effectively speaking, the exact same footprint that it created it made the underground filter significantly more effective in the tank he was doing it in, which is a really cool idea. I wish, I'll put this out there, Corey, free product idea. I'm sure you've already thought about it, so it's not really free, but I'm just going to say it again. If for some reason you watch this or somebody sends this to you, build an underground filter plate that is taller, modular, and fits your air collar tubes. Just have them have a little puzzle piece snap together system. Easy peasy. Make it so that I can fit a 20 long, 40 gallon, a 10, whatever the heck. Printable, great, do it. Looks like he was showing a UGF. Then perfect. If he's already doing it, beautiful. Hopefully it wasn't a full DIY job. I know he's had some DIY ones that he's tested in the past, but I would love to see that as a product from them. I know he's experimenting more and more with undergravel filters. But yeah. For me, I will say in my experience with my current undergravel project, from the purpose of the plants that I like to use, I would be really tempted to put undergravel in almost every aquarium I had, but not for the reasons that most people do, where they're like, I'm building an anoxic system. It's like, no, I'm building a system to specifically pull nutrients through my substrate to all the root feeders, aka crypts, that I love putting in every effing tank I own. I would do it in probably every tank I have. Mr. Novak will be so proud. See what you're trying to do, Geek Boy. Trying to rile me up. Trying to get me in rant mode. See what you're trying to do. Can't do it. Can't do it. But I love you anyway, buddy. Ghost Pickle! Good evening, sir. Hopefully you get a phone call soon, by the way, Ghost Pickle. I have I've done the things and the stuff that we talked about this morning. For those that don't know, Ghostly Pickle is someone I know in real life. We have worked together. We are colleagues. We are friends. You all should bully him, though, and make sure that he starts programming for me. I'm kidding. We bully no one here. Except the jerks who come into chat. Then we bully them. That's fun. I was possibly able to keep crypts with my silver dollars Buenos Aires Tetras using a UGF. So far, so good. My only concern would be that eventually the Buenos Aires and silver dollars would chew the upper levels of the foliage. But as long as the roots stay healthy, you might be okay. That would be cool. The biggest thing with most of those kind of fish is that they rip them out of the substrate, right? So if you have an undergravel, it's going to help create a naturally deeper and stronger root system. What language you want? Rust? Bro. I know what you've been up to. You can't mess with me. We talk too much for you to get away with that. What is a favorite crypt you have? Jacobson Eye Pink. Without question. Jacobson Eye Pink. Best crypt. Best crypt. Takes almost no work. Has great color. Propagates itself pretty easy. But then if you do give it like CO2 and a few other things, you get much more of that red and pink color, and it looks phenomenal. Such a great plant. Who needs pink flamingo? Get Jacobson Eye Pink. Way better crypt. All right, gang. It's funny, Corey has talked at length about trying to stay ahead of the game on YouTube, but he sets the pace. Anything he talks about at length becomes the new thing. JJ Aquatic. I don't feel that's 100% the case, but I feel that if he talks about something enough, he has the capability to do so, if that makes sense. I don't think that he's 100% the person setting the pace. I think the pace is just set by whatever people want. Somebody will see some video somewhere. It could be about no filter aquariums as an example. And I would say that the strongest voice in that was probably Lucas Brett's. But eventually, if enough people start asking questions about it to Corey, because he does his live streams all the time, he will make videos about it. But there are other things that he does pay attention to in the hobby, whether they're like bringing back old things, an undergravel filter as an example, and trying to make some adjustments to it that make it a reasonable product for him, potentially. Then he talks about it more and more as he's experimenting and playing around, and he can potentially set the tone of the conversation about like, hey, are we underestimating undergravel filters, or why aren't we doing this, or maybe I want to try this more often, whether it's other creators. The thing is, like, all your creators in general, myself included, although a lot less nowadays, I'm going to be very honest, we all kind of watch each other in some way, shape, or form. And if somebody says something that interests me or another creator, whoever the heck it may be, right? We're just saying the proverbial me as the person watching content. If it interests me enough, I might start asking other creators about it, or as a creator, I might be like, I want to experiment with that thing. And then if I like what I see, then I probably want to tell my audience about it, right? So I think it's just the nature of what YouTube is in general. Teviston, I know you like the big rainbows. How do you feel about the smaller ones? I'm thinking about getting fricatas soon. Okay, well, first off, fricatas are a pseudomcgill. Pseudomcgill are not rainbows. They're blue eyes. Now we rainbow nuts are generous in our glory and power that we include them in the rainbow fish. But from a technical perspective, they're not actually rainbows. And if I were to say that they are rainbows, even though I usually just loop them in because I don't care, Gary would probably hit me because he expects a lot out of me. Apparently, whenever I see Gary, Gary gives me shit for all sorts of stuff, but he does it lovingly. He's like that uncle that actually truly cares about you, but communicates via snark. uh, so I personally haven't kept any of the pseudomcgills because I like the big rainbow so much that anytime I'm putting together a tank for rainbows, and my inclination is, oh, maybe I'll try this pseudomcgill, I instead go, nah, bro, I want this other big rainbow instead. The only pseudomcgill that will like probably change that is the cyanodorsalis, which is a brackish and or full saltwater pseudomcgill. They're the only one. They're really, really cool. And I have this like crazy idea in my head to eventually do, and I think I encouraged somebody in my club to do this because I kind of like seeded it when Gary was coming through and he was like, I will bring cyanodorsalis if someone wants them. But keep in mind, they're brackish to practically full salt or can be full salt fish, so be ready for that. And I was like, yeah, if you watched our macroalgae talk that we had from somebody who did a talk about keeping macroalgae tanks like you would do aquascapes, instead of having basically like the saltwater planted tank, you could make a saltwater planted tank with macroalgae and cyanodorsalis. And there was somebody who was like, I kind of want to do that. And I think that person ended up buying cyanodorsalis, so I think they're doing it. But that would be like the one thing that I would do that would make me want a pseudomcgill is saltwater macroalgae, like a kind of pseudo planted tank, and then putting the cyanodorsalis in it. But for right now, I'm not adding that level of complication to my life. I'm unfortunately too busy with other stuff. If I win that random lotto, maybe we'll change that, right? Oh Lord. KS Colassio Susii. Uh-oh. If you breed an F2 with a wildcaught, is the result an F1? Yes, no. Technically speaking, no. Because you always go with whatever the lowest generation would be. But from a weird technical perspective, they're like an F1.5. But basically, you would probably label them as an F3, but you could explain, hey, I did this. So realistically, they are actually a little bit closer to wild, but for a transparency perspective, I label them as this. Technically speaking, that's how you probably should do it. Does it really matter that much? No, not really. You're not the number of generations deep to where you have to worry about any level of like inbreeding genetics. I put quotations around that because with fish it's like so many more generations than it is for a lot of other things. But yeah, you're nowhere near having to worry about that. I think Gary has kept the same line of Herbert Axelrodi, the yellow rainbow, for like 30 years at this point, and he's at like generation I don't effing know. He even says that when he brings either eggs or fry of them, and they're very healthy fish. You usually have to get either very extreme inbreeding, like what can happen for the different color morphs and forms and guppies, or you have to get literally like hundreds of generations deep before you start risking any level of genetic defect or things like that. A cold tolerant neon variety? I don't know that that's possible. I'm sure someone's tried though. Leo, those are fighting words. Bring it on. it's the truth of the matter, man. All right, it's just how it is. It's like not everything that we put in the Melanitaniidae family is an actual rainbow fish. Rainbow fish is based on genus. Pseudomugils don't qualify. Sorry, bub. They're a blue eye. Still a very pretty fish. Still a very pretty fish. Aquarium Fun, I think 3 examples of big aquarium co-op success are Easy Green, Sponge Filters, and the Magic Small Fish Food. Those were really good products. Maybe he'll do it again with a UGF. The only problem with UGFs, and this is kind of why they fell out of favor from a manufacturer level, is that once you have a UGF installed, you kind of don't need to change it ever. So it doesn't sell in a level of volume that can like make a lot of money. But I think if you want to serve the hobby well, which in general, I feel like Corey tries to do that. He tries to serve the hobby fairly well with a lot of the products he selects. I think it's a cool thing to do. Like, I would agree with you on Easy Green and the Small Fish Food and the Sponge Filter a little bit because he's done some things to incorporate techniques, equipment, however you want to put it, from kind of other things that work really, really well into a more economically viable product. And my example would be like the jet lifters that come with the Swiss Tropicals foam filters, but their filters are so freaking expensive compared to, say, like co-ops. Where I think the failure is in that product, and it's not really a failure, it's a choice, is that he only offered the coarse sponge early on, and it's taking years until we're getting to a point of where he's offering a finer sponge, because I think for a lot of people, that coarse sponge is a no-go. But every other part of the sponge filter, the base, it being a little thicker, a little heavier, green, whether you care about that or not, but I actually think it helps blend in with certain things, and the jet lift tube with the air collar, all those are wins. All those are wins. It's just whether or not you care about the coarse sponge, which, like, I do. I'm not a big fan of how coarse the sponge is currently, so I don't use a lot of them. But I do use some, because it does work. You know, do what you do. Lots of wins. Lots of ways to win. Yeah, Corey sponge filters are quiet. Yeah, it's just a matter of, like, learning from all sorts of things, right? Secant attachments to bypass the filter. What we're talking about? Probably something else. Anyway, how do you like the Kalitawa rainbows? That's my only rainbows I have now in the Fluviflex 32 with the Sumbu shell lake. So Sumbu shell dwellers from Lake Tanganyika. Wow, you have those two in the same tank? That's an interesting combo. I would be worried that the Sumbus would like try to kind of bully the rainbows, and when they would get a little jumpy or do something dumb and hurt themselves. I like Kalitawas a lot. A lot of people were like really going crazy for them in the Northwest. And so, because other people were getting them, I just didn't get them. Because I knew I could get them basically at any time I wanted. Same with the Myra size. And I focused on like other fish for my personal selections. They're really, really cool fish. They're really, really cool. There's a reason why Gary and a lot of other people call them the most amazing rainbow fish. They have a truly unique coloring, and they look amazing. And they stay small relatively. After a certain amount of time, they eventually get to like 3.5 inches. But some of them are getting to 4 in some people's tanks, which is kind of interesting. But they're just a cool, small rainbow, and they look great. JJ Aquatic, I think at the end of the day, Corey is a hobbyist that loves to find ways to improve the fish keeping experience. I can't disagree with that. Can't disagree with that. I think that's accurate. I would argue that he's a very business savvy person who happens to be a hobbyist. It'd be about the only edit I would make, is because he definitely is very like business minded in a lot of things he does, and he's transparent about that. So I respect him for that, right? But he definitely does think hobbyist forward in the ways that he makes product decisions for his company, and I like that. There's a reason why, even when I am negative about certain products they've put out, I still buy Easy Green regularly. I buy the Magic Fish Feed regularly. I still go to their store 75% of the time that I want to buy fish. right? I like a lot of the things that he has made priorities in his company. That's it. Stephen P., I have kept Picta, Bozemanai, Kalitawa, and Pseudos together for a couple of years. Aren't you freaking fancy? Aren't you mixed tank of cool stuff? No, that's part of the beauty of rainbows is you can keep them all together. You can keep big rainbows and small rainbows. Sometimes the smaller fish, whether it's rainbows or other smaller schooling fish, can have trouble getting to food or becoming too shy because of how boisterous and energetic big rainbows are. It's a small risk, but like obviously you found the right balance. I know you're a good fish keeper, and I like it. I respect it. Dense plants do help. Yeah. Have a jungle. My favorite product Corey makes is his fry food. It's amazing. Yeah, I feel like I did a certain amount of justice in the video where I compared his food to Extremes Nano and a couple and the Cobalt Nano as well, and he also had the smaller like floating pellet. I feel like I did justice to that, like showing it and then just honestly telling it as it is. Like it does something in the water column that basically no other food in that category does, and it stays mid water column relatively suspended in the grand scheme of things for quite a long period of time, which is amazing for tons of tiny fish, especially given the size of the food itself. And in that regard, it makes it a somewhat unique product in the industry, and thus it deserves a relatively high amount of praise. It's a good product. Plain and simple. Got no problem with that. Happy to say it. I use it for a reason. It's great in tanks with lots of small fish, but it's also great in tanks with a bunch of rainbows. Have you tried the Co-op Community Pellet? Ages ago, yes. So I don't know if the formula is different nowadays, but in general, I prefer flake over pellet. Because rainbows are dumb and choke on things. And their throat is smaller than their mouth. And they're dumb. Did I mention that they're dumb? Because they definitely are dumb. Okay. Oh, woo. I have to do it. I love them to death, but they're a little touched. A little touched. Why are rainbow fish dumb? Because they're so damn pretty. Are their mouths smaller than their brains? No, their mouths are much bigger than their brains. Big body, tiny head, tinier throat, probably tinier brain. They're certainly not winning the intelligence game. That's probably cichlids. Cichlids are surprisingly smart, or bettas. Bettas are very smart, but they're probably going to win the looking contest because damn are they pretty. All right, gang. I want to thank you all for being here. Hopefully, I get a kind of feel for the new job pretty fast, and I'll know whether or not it impacts streaming. But if it does, we'll figure out something. We'll probably like shift to streaming on a weekend or something like that. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But until that, we'll keep streaming. I'll see you next Tuesday. Thank you all so much for watching, and stay awesome. Find your why. Trust me. You find it, life gets a lot easier.